All right, so when I first started with the MPC, I wasn't sure of what I was supposed to do with the tracks. Okay, like how was I supposed to separate them, and if I should separate them at all? Because looking at this grid right here, okay, you could see all the different dots for my drums. This is my drum track, and all I have though is the kick, snare, and hat. All right, let's check it out. All right, so it's pretty straightforward, and the thing is, it's only 3 hits, so that's why like I keep it all together, because it's just a matter of preference for the drums though. But for everything else, I keep it separate. All right, going to the track mute here, I've got drums, keys, and horns, and you can put everything basically on the same track if you want, really, but it would be very, very messy. Okay, and I suggest that you do separate everything, but you don't have to separate the drums. I mean, I've seen some people, they put the kick, snare, hat, tom, cymbals, whatever, they put it on every single track, and you don't really need to do that, because the reason why is because of the outputs. Okay, now in the MPC 2500, you have the 8 outputs, and with that, that doesn't mean that you have to put everything on a separate track. Okay, so if you go into here, all right, you go to the over here, right here, you go to F6. Okay, it shows the output. Okay, you go down, and let's say you go to track 1. Okay, and then you see that the output is on track. All right, so that's just the standard one on track. All right, now you could also go, you turn the knob here, or you could use the plus minus. Okay, and here you have ST, which is stereo. Okay, and then you see next to it right here, you see FX off. All right, I'll get into that in a minute, but basically, what it is, you got stereo, then you got this is what's telling me right here. You got 12, 34, 56, 78. All right, then it goes to output 1, 2, 3, all the way to 8. All right, so if you want to put your kick on the output of 1, okay, then you could just do that right here. Okay, so you got that. You go down with the arrow. You can go. This is my snare right here, so I can go over here, put that on 2, etc., etc. Okay, so let's go back up here. All right. Now over here, I was just showing you, it's 78, 56, 34, 12. So when I saw that, I said, well, what the hell is that? There's no 12 output or 34 output, but what it is that they're grouped. Okay, so you got output 1 and 2, and that's why it doesn't show 1 and 2, because there's only so much room here, right? You just put 1 and 2. So you got, let's say you want to put your kick on the output of 1 and 2, you want to have your kick in stereo. Okay, so that's the advantage of this, or on 3, 4, 5, and 6, or 7 and 8. Okay, so the thing is, the reason why I'm showing you this is because you don't need to have everything on a separate track. Okay, because if you want to use the separate outputs in the back of the MPC, then you could just do it this way. All right, now going back to right here with the effects, I don't want to get sidetracked too much, but with the effects, just a quick tip here. You can see that it's only, as you go through, it's only when it goes onto stereo that the effects one pops up here. Okay, so that means you can only use the effects on the stereo output of the MPC. All right, now for the effects, you've got FX 1 and 2. That's it. All right, and I don't really use the FX on the MPC because I just don't like them, and because also I don't really need them, right? So I mix everything out into my DAW, so I just do all my effects there. So if you want to do that and use the effects, you could do it, but that means that you got to only have 2 effects, and it's only on stereo. So if you're going to go and put let's say your kick on output 1, then you can't use any effects or whatever. Okay, so that's just something to keep in mind if you want to use that kind of routing. Okay, but going back to this, so let's say you want to put the kick, snare, and hat on a separate track, you could definitely do that. I just grouped the drums together. Everything else, as you go up to the next track, I call it music, but this is my keys right here. Let's check it out. All right, so it's pretty straightforward. Now, there's that, and then horns on my third track. Okay, so that's all that's there. Okay, so I separate them, but for the drums, I just tend to keep them together. I've seen people that tried to put more than just drums on the grid, right, like on the track. So, but when you do that, let's say you go to the other view here for the grid. Okay, now you can see there's only 3 drum hits, but let's say you have, let's say you got like something like 10 tracks, you got 10 instruments. Well, just imagine all the dots you're going to see on this grid, okay? And not just that, but also you're going to hear it, like you're going to see it like, lined up with each one. It's going to look very messy, right? You have to try to figure out where it is. I mean, granted, you could put like, for example, let's say your kick, you just hit the pad and it shows you, I'm not sure if you can see in the video here, but it shows a line going across. So that highlights the kick track here. Okay, now, but still, I mean, let's say you're going up to 16. That's all the way down there. I don't know if you can see that, but it's all, see, so it shows 16. It's all the way down. So you're like, I just don't want to mess with something like that, so that's why I try to keep the drums together. There are times, though, where I do separate them in a way, okay? So one of the tricks I like to do when I'm making some drums, okay, is that, okay, I'll highlight the drums here. Let's just listen to the drum track. All right, just standard drum track. Sounds pretty dope. Anyway, so sometimes I'll take something like this, okay, and then I want to spice it up a bit. So what I'll do is I'll add, let's say a drum break beat. Okay, let's say it could be something like Funky Drummer, for example, right? Take something like that, and I'll put that on, I'll add like another track here. Let's say here it's unused, so I'll add another track. I'll call it drums 2 or something, and I'll put the breakbeat on there. So I'll just, I'll lock it up. I'll make sure it loops with my tempo and all that. And then I'll just bring the volume down very, very low, so it just kind of sits in the background with my drums. Just a little trick I like to do. So for all you guys out there who are trying to spice up your drums, that's something you could do. And so that's when I would separate my drums, okay? So yeah, I'm treating it like a separate instrument. I mean, it is. Basically, it's like a separate thing I'm doing here. So that's when I separate it. So basically, just keep everything together for the drums, and the rest you separate. But the bottom line is that you should just keep everything separate. And that's why when you're first starting out with the MPC, if you're not sure, like some people probably think, oh, do I need to put my kick on track 1 in order to use output 1 of the MPC? No, you don't, because you could have 10 instruments and have them all on one track on all these pads here, and then just assign the outputs over here. Okay, so another way to get to the output of your beat is to go to mode and then pad 8. All right. Now, when you're in here, it brings you here right away to the pan. Okay, you're on pan, but you want to go to out, so you press F2. Okay, now before I continue though, I'll go back to main. Okay, now look, I'm on track 2 here. Okay, this is my keys, right? It says music, but that's my keys. What's going to happen is you have to go to, you have to go to the track that you want to work with. So you go there, okay? You go back to drums, then you go to mode, pad 8. Now I'm on my drums here, okay? So if I play the drums here, okay, listen to the snare, okay? So I'm gonna go over with the arrow to track 2, that's my snare, okay? And with the jog wheel, I'm gonna bring it down. So listen to the snare here. So there you go. So that way you have to make sure that you're on the track that you want to work with for your output, okay? Now, one of the things too is that when you go up in the arrow here to see it says TR, track. This is where you could change the value. This is where you could change the value. You have, like I showed before, stereo, and then all the other outputs, okay? So you could change it right there. So remember, mode, pad 8, that's where you could change your outputs. And then, of course, you've got the F3, which is the FX sends, if you're doing all that stuff and everything, then here go to effects, blah blah blah, all that, so it's pretty standard. It's just that, again, if you're working with the MPC for the first time, you're not too sure, you do not have to keep everything on a separate track in order to make use of the 8 outs of the MPC. You could just do that right here in the software, and you'd be good to go. All right, so that's it for me. So go make some beats.